So one of the big challenges that I see, the problem statement really is what I like to call the M&A or investment transparency gap. One of the biggest challenges that I encountered in my career and with a lot of the business people that I work with is that when you're in-house and you're doing a lot of deal making, whether that's mergers and acquisitions, private equity, venture investments, early stage investments, corporate M&A, what have you, the amount of documentation is just never ending, right? And so what ends up happening is that everything compounds with time. Every deal has so much going on, and all of these different documents, every single one of them impacts the other document. So in order to get information on what somebody might think is a simple question, like, I don't know, what are my board rights? Or what's the waterfall preference? How much money am I going to get if this company gets sold? Someone has to go through so many documents with a fine-tooth comb to get that answer. And relying on external counsel is important. You still need those lawyers. But a lot of the times, we just want the answers right now. And we need that information ASAP at our fingertips. And so the challenge is that while AI has finally gotten to the point where it's really able to help in these ways, because it can look things up, it can summarize information, etc., I have not been able to find any other products on the market that really looks at this specific problem and really understands how complicated it is to go ahead and look at all these documents to come together and really, really give you that information and story. So the value of Aracor, as we call it, it's sort of like the deal brain that you can have inside of your team. It can help with portfolio maintenance. It can help with due diligence. It can help with answering simple questions. It can help with understanding the story and insights on a particular investment deal. And it's just like a second look, right? You're getting a second opinion in no time at all. And there's no harm in getting that second opinion. And a lot of times there's a lot of benefit in getting it. So I think that AI is going to shift the legal industry in massive and tremendous ways, in so many ways, right? It's going to start, first of all, really with legal education. I think that the way that law schools teach law is going to have to change fundamentally, because the skills and the expectations on lawyers when they graduate law school, in order to make them marketable, it's going to change. It's not going to be the same old, sort of expectation that law school is conceptual and then you learn how to do things in a big law firm, because I don't think that clients are going to want to pay for those junior associates, hundreds of dollars per hour for them to be learning. So it's going to be a big question. How do you incorporate that into education? How do you upskill the next generation of lawyers? I think the next thing is really for in-house legal teams. The question is going to be, a lot of in-house lawyers traditionally always were very frustrated that it's always the external partners in big law firms who are they're the business people, right? They're the trusted advisors, and the in-house legal is more like a coordinator. Just, getting things done, making sure that things get signed, checking on deadlines. I think that can change tremendously. And I actually think that it should, because I think that when you're an in-house attorney, you have a front seat to the action. You know things that documents are just never going to provide that information on. You know the personalities, you know the history, you know the context. So the ability now to bring a lot more of that strategic work in-house, because you have technologies that can, help augment these processes, I think is something really, really exciting and something that a lot of in-house attorneys should really think about. So I think the first thing with successful adoption is this. So I can just tell you my own experience, right? So just to kind of step back a little bit and explain a little bit about myself. So I'm Chief Legal Officer of Constructor Group. I oversee a venture fund, a technology company, a family office, and lots of businesses in between. I have a team of 7 people who report to me worldwide, and I manage all of our outside law firm relationships as well, which is sort of a multi-million-dollar annual budget because of all of the different things that we're doing. So I sort of sit at the eye of the storm. And the first thing that I really did with Aracor was I used my legal team as a testing ground. And I told my legal team that in addition to everything else, right? It's not just because I want to use my guinea pigs for using Aracor for my own sake, which I did. But a big part of it also is I said, I want all of you to become AI masters. I want everybody who works for me to have an AI first mentality. And that actually goes past my legal team because, now that I'm also CEO of a tech company, marketing, human resources, finance, I push everyone to learn these things. And I find that in the beginning, there's always an uphill battle. There's always a struggle because there are AI tools out there, you can use ChatGPT or whatever, and it's just like fun, right? You can do fun things but when it comes to real business and work, lawyers especially, there's a lot of pushback there. Because they'll say, listen, I'm so busy as it is. And I don't have time for another thing, right? And lawyers are not particularly tech savvy and we don't use a lot of software tools because we're so busy. Or they'll say, well, I can't really do what I do, or it wasn't 100% accurate. And I'm like, okay, but once you learn how to use it, once you understand its value, how it can work with you, etc., first of all, you'll understand not to be afraid of it and think that, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job? Is it going to replace me? But you're going to learn how to, exponentially increase your value and scale yourself because of it. And so the big thing for me is just constant training, right? Constant education around AI. I sent Coursera links and other types of links even to my team. We now want to start creating our own courses because I think we've become just such masters at using AI and building it and also understanding its limits. And so just the big thing is I think you need to make it fun, and you really need to push anyone in any team that they need to start adopting this, because otherwise they're going to get replaced by, people who do know how to use those things. So I think that the top skills are this, right? First of all, I think it's the ability to understand prompting. Some people, prompting is really intuitive. So I have some people who work for me who are like, Katya, why do we have to take prompting classes? Like, this is so easy. What's the problem? But for other people, not so much. And so really understanding, and that's actually, in a way, it's funny because it's like learning how to communicate, because you have to learn, like, how do you explain something? How do you get the things that you need out of it, etc. I think that that's really a key skill. And I think that that's a skill that can translate to any industry, right? Is just learning and understanding prompting. I think learning and understanding, the nature of large language models and what they are and how they work and how they don't work also, so that when not to trust them, I think is incredibly important. You don't want employees who are lazy. They're just like, oh, I'll just let the AI do this and then that's it. Because those are the ones who make the most mistakes and they come up with really stupid responses. So you need people who are really understanding, like, how do you engage with this? How do you get the maximum output out of the input? I think another really, really big thing to learn about and upskill about for anybody is data privacy and compliance. I think that that's a huge one. GDPR obviously is for Europe, but frankly, GDPR touches upon everyone and everything because we live in a globalized world, and security and data privacy is really paramount now in understanding also, when you work in a professional setting, what's appropriate for putting into AI tools, how can you do it, etc. And I think that that's also really important in terms of understanding certain things, because I think that when people don't understand, they do something even funnier, which is that then they won't use any AI tools at work. Right? They'll restrict everything because they're like, it's not safe, it's not secure. But then they're on their phones secretly, like, picking everything up, right? And think about it. Think about the amount of leakage and privacy leakage. So actually what you want is, you don't want people who behave that way, who, you want people who actually take a middle road approach and who have really educated themselves to be able to understand, how do I interact with these things in a safe and secure manner. Yeah, I think there's lots of I think it's going to change everybody's jobs. Seriously, yeah. Everything is going to be a different career path. I think that talking about my area, right, with lawyers, for example, it's going to be about being an engineering architect of how do you train AI tools to draft contracts? How do you do this? How do you set the rules? right? So maybe you're not going to be the one who's manually sitting there and drafting the contracts anymore, but who's teaching the AI, right? So think about that in many different industries. It's going to be the same thing, is understanding kind of how to be an engineer in that field. I think that will change jobs. So I think a lot of jobs are going to get removed, but they'll be replaced with new AI focused jobs. I think that will be a really, really big one. And again, that's why I think it's really important to understand what's coming down the pipeline. I think that, humans are traditionally not really good at predicting the future. Like if you take a look, I was just talking about this yesterday with my brother. If you take a look at the last 100 years of books, cinema, television, all the sci-fi, what's the one thing that's missing what's the one thing that no one predicted? Death. Nobody predicted this. Nobody predicted that when you see the, apocalyptic future, everyone walks around like this, right?
Right.
And so the point is that we missed it. In like 80s futuristic movies, everybody goes into some cool phone booth or something, but like nobody's on their cell phone. So we don't really know what AI is gonna do to us and how it's going to change things, but it's clear it's going to change things.
Sure.
So I think every industry will be transformed, and the important thing is just to get ahead of it. Yeah, well, first of all, so I have to tell you, with regard to certifications, because this is such a new field, right? I think that, there's just so many new opportunities for new types of certifications, new types of education that are coming out. So I know that you do a lot of those. So there are a lot of things I'd be really interested to see. Where is the person learning? Who is teaching them? How are they learning about it? That's really exciting. There's lots of new things. Anybody who's really just taking the extra time and the extra steps, to go that distance to learn more and to study more, that's something that would definitely pay attention to and be interested in, to really understand. I think it's really important to me also to see what kinds of courses, people are taking and how that translates to the specific position and role that they want. But again, because it permeates every single industry, I'd be looking at it at, every step of the game. Like I said, in my company, we're AI first mentality. And I'll tell you that the market is changing so fast. So here's just an example, right? And going back to like certifications and courses and education. I was a professor at a law school in the United States, and I taught law and technology. So I taught one course a semester. And 2 years ago, I taught this course, and I asked the students who here uses ChatGPT or any generative AI tools. Nobody raised their hand. And the very first homework assignment that I gave them was to download it and to use it and come back and tell me what was their experience, right? Imagine now, 2 years later, if I were to ask any classroom that question, who wouldn't raise their hand? That's how fast the world is changing. And so right now, there are so many new courses, there's so many new interesting things. And I think a lot of this is really, everything builds upon everything else, right? There are certain really, really, really complex concepts when you get into certain areas of AI. And there's all these subsets of AI, and there's all the questions of how these things play into each other. Most people don't even need to get to that level, right? But just even understanding the basics. If someone tells me like, oh yeah, if somebody works, in a communications role and they've never used an AI tool to store all the memory and figure out their voice and speed themselves up, and they're sitting and they're actually writing this stuff by themselves, and they're not using it to be able to produce 10 times faster than before, I wouldn't want to hire that person.